Hello there. Now there's many occasions when I feel like I've got photographer's block. I'm tired, I'm frustrated, and the creative juices just aren't flowing. People will often tell me that these videos are inspiring, but that's nice to hear, but not how I feel very often at all. Now there's lots of things about landscape photography that are very frustrating and it doesn't often go right. So in this video, what I thought we'd do is discuss 5 of the worst things about doing landscape photography. And I do like to leave you with a positive feeling at the end. So I'll also discuss 5 best things about landscape photography. And it's those things that keep us coming back over and over and over again. Let's go. Before we get into it today though, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a domain name, a website, or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Right, so probably the worst thing about doing landscape photography for me is people. One of the reasons I do landscape photography is to get away from it all and to make that connection to the landscape. Every time I turn up to a place and the car park's just rammed with people, it really just puts me off a little bit and I almost start to feel anxious and nervous about it because I want those beautiful natural scenes without anyone in it. This is totally my problem. I'm sort of not saying I don't like people, because I do, but it's just difficult sometimes, and particularly now as we are in August, it's the summer holidays, the kids are all off, they've been off anyway because of lockdown. You go to a beach at this time of year and there's just people everywhere, so it makes seascape photography particularly difficult to do. I'll give you an example, because I get annoyed at little things that wind me up. So the other day I was out in the landscape walking along and there was 2 people behind me with 2 dogs each. There was 4 dogs. They were perfectly fine dogs, perfectly fine people, but they were walking behind me and they had these sort of metal leads and they were clanking around so much and it sounded like Santa Claus was behind me and it just drove me absolutely nuts. We've talked a lot about social distancing over the last few months, and that's something that I and many other landscape photographers will always try and practice anyway. The other thing you have sometimes is other landscape photographers as well. Usually decent people. You do get those who make silly comments about gear and those idiots that stand right in front of your composition, but I always try to stay calm and just relaxed about that, but it can be very, very annoying. So people, that is number 1. So number 2 is the weather. Now, as British people, we spend a lot of time talking about the weather anyway, but when you've been doing landscape photography for quite a while, you start to become a little bit of an expert on the weather because it's almost a necessity. And before you know it, you're going to be talking about the position of the jet stream, pressure, isobars, and cold fronts. And the problem is it's just so boring. You can see it in people's eyes as you're starting to talk to them and they're just wishing that they were anywhere else in the world other than listening to you. You'd have a better time keeping them interested by talking about train timetables. I've been there too, unfortunately, after I lived in London for quite a while. You ask any Londoner which tube line they should take to complete their journey and you'll see their eyes light up as they get the opportunity to school you. Undoubtedly though, nothing ruins a day of landscape photography more than the wind. Whether like snow, rain, fog, mist, anything like that, it can create really dramatic images, but there's very few occasions when the wind is actually going to really help you out. But it makes lots of things difficult with sand blowing in your face, and especially in the mountains where once you get up high, you just get that wind whistling past your ears all day. And after a while of hearing that roar, it just drives you mad. It's why now when I'm watching the weather, I'm always looking for high pressure and paying attention to isobars. So the previous 2 feed into this next one, and that is planning and figuring out where to go to actually take our pictures. When we first start doing landscape photography, we quickly start to figure out that some locations are better suited to a particular set of conditions. So for example, a misty, wet woodland, or a big, wide sunset vista, or a beautiful, overcast, long exposure coastal scene. But trying to get in the right place at the right time is actually really difficult, and I've had so many failed trips because of that. Now, I hear you, yeah, I've had a great day out in the landscape and all that, but sometimes I just want to capture a great shot. And anyway, I've probably spent most of the day picking up little plastic bags with dog shit in them. Bloody people. This one is probably why workshops and photography tours are still so popular, because it's just so nice to have someone show you around for the day. But I think I'm making this video partly to remind myself, because undoubtedly so many of my best shots have come from days when I've just gone out to explore, and every now and again you will come across something spectacular. Now, we often put this down to luck, but if you don't get up, get off the sofa and get out, you're guaranteed not to see it. So the next thing is the gear. Now, do you know when you see a street photographer, they're so cool, aren't they? They've always got a scarf on and flowing hair and mooching around looking all artistic. They've got their hipster camera with tiny prime lens on it, and it leaves me hating them just a little bit. This is entirely through jealousy though, because I'm envious of how lightweight their gear is, how efficient it is, and how accessible it is. I'm desperate to attract more people to do landscape photography, but there's just something I think inherently uncool about doing it. The outdoor weatherproof clothing might have something to do with it, but I think it really comes down to the gear. Tripods, filters, shutter release cables, they're not things we dreamed of owning when we were kids. They also can be very expensive, and they get very heavy very quickly. I often wonder when I'm climbing up a hill why I'm lugging 15 to 20 kilograms worth of solid metal and glass up there. I really don't know many landscape photographers that don't suffer some kind of crippling back pain from time to time. Now, there's been some impressive camera releases in 2020 so far, and I do quite enjoy talking about the gear from time to time, but I do find it very frustrating just how much it dominates the conversation in photography. The marketing deployed by the camera companies is just so powerful, and I think it only serves to really distract us from really what's important. I just wish sometimes we could move away from it and spend more time thinking about the why than the how. It's just far more interesting. So the last worst thing is ourselves. Now, landscape photography is so often a solitary pursuit, which often can be great, but I'm undoubtedly my own worst enemy when it comes to doing landscape photography. A lot of my videos over the last year have been dealing with these issues, feelings like artistic anxiety, feeling worthless, imposter syndrome, and trying to find meaning in what we do. It's just so easy to get lost in our own head. What it usually results in is feeling frustrated, feeling dejected, and ultimately just not going out, and we lose interest. Now, the fix for this is often to get very practical. So let's move on to the 5 best things about doing landscape photography. Before we do that though, I just wanted to let you know about today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. If you need a website, somewhere to show all that beautiful work that you've created, then Squarespace is the place for you. There's beautiful templates that are designed for photographers. You can just stick your images on there and have a website up very quickly. You don't need any technical knowledge, and it's just really easy to do, and they've got great customer service if you need any help. Go to squarespace.com to start your free trial today, and then if you like what you've created during the trial, use the offer code FIRSTMAN to get 10% off your first purchase. So it was one of the worst, but it's also one of the best, and that is people. This time though, I'm talking about the people you know, your friends. Since we all went through lockdown, it's become more obvious than ever just how much we need each other. I talked about not shooting in isolation the other week, and going out to do landscape photography with a friend is actually a really practical way to get out of your own head and share the experience. There's just no doubt in my mind that all of my top 10 days of doing photography have been shooting with someone else. I genuinely believe that doing landscape photography is 90% the experience and 10% the final image. Spending a day on an adventure, laughing together and crying together is what it's all about. Making memories together. And when the Grim Reaper comes calling, it won't be the days when you are out alone with your camera that you remember, even if you captured a banger. So the next best thing is the outdoors. Now, I joked about it before, but enjoyment of the outdoors and nature is essential for a landscape photographer and one of the best things about it. We've seen over lockdown how so many people reconnected with nature, but it has at times been a little bit annoying. There's just so many more people around, and it's particularly annoying when we see how disrespectful some people have been, and also just the huge amounts of extra litter that have been around. Bloody people. On a video I did earlier this year, I put loads of effort into making this sequence of me making coffee outside. Now, when the video went out, I got 2 questions. One of them was a really good question, and one of them was not. One that wasn't very good was, why didn't you just use a flask? The good question was, why did you use instant coffee? Now, I definitely need to up my field coffee game. But asking why I didn't use a flask, I think, is kind of missing the point. It's about spending my time outside, connecting with the environment, being still and appreciating everything around me. We don't have to just hike on through quickly all the time, because we're almost certainly going to miss things. Plus, fresh coffee tastes better, even when it's instant. Does anybody know any good field coffee that I can make? So for the next one, all the worst things we talked about earlier combine to make one of the best things, and that is the challenge of it all. The best things in life are difficult, and landscape photography is definitely difficult. I genuinely believe that having challenges in our life is essential, because without it, we lose perspective and become weak. Without these challenging moments, the difficult journey, and these problems that we have to solve, we would never overcome anything. Life would be too easy, and I don't think that's very good for our mental health. It's when we succeed though, overcome those challenges and win, that it creates that natural high, those euphoric moments that we will remember forever. Just like when we capture a banger. And the next one is those euphoric moments, and they don't come around all that often, and it's amazing when they do. Not so long ago, I was doing a sunrise shoot at Bleetarn in the Lake District with my friend, and there was a couple of other photographers over to our right, and when the sun came up and the sky just burst into pink, the 2 people over there started whooping, and I thought, well, maybe that's a little bit over the top, but it's fair enough, isn't it? People, when they watch my videos in these kind of euphoric moments, people that know me, they often say, Adam, that's not really how you are though. And I always say, no, but it actually is. That's how I'm feeling inside. And it's one of the nice things about making these videos and these vlogs, that it gives me the opportunity to actually communicate that to you. Even if when I'm filming those moments, I do now and again get some puzzled looks from people. So one of the very best things about doing landscape photography is the creativity it allows, the positivity and the big benefits to our mental health that it provides. I've spent the last 6 months or so writing a book. It's going to be a photo book, but I wanted it to be something different. So I've been writing about my experiences in the police and how that forged a philosophy that I now try to put into the landscape photography I create. And I've been writing about some pretty gory and harrowing moments that I've sort of want to share, but it reminded me of what landscape photography has always done for me. It provided that escape, should we say, but also those moments of calm when I could get out into the landscape, get that exercise, get that sort of headspace and calmness to think and create. And it always left me feeling good. The physical exercise helps as well. People often share their stories with me about the benefits to their well-being. and it's just undoubtedly a very powerful and positive force. So I titled this video, "Why Would Anybody Do Landscape Photography?" because I thought that might get a few more clicks. But the question I really wanted to ask was, why would anybody not want to do landscape photography? To me, sometimes it feels a little bit like being a parent. 80% of the time, it's an almighty pain in the backside, but it's that 20%. It's that 20% that counts. It's that 20% that makes life worth living.